So for our final story, we're going to keep it hot. And let's be honest, it seems like Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan has had a 3 for 3 in these stories, because there are some new polling numbers that came out this week about the upcoming 2026 governor's race. A fresh Target Insyght poll shows that current Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan, running as an independent, is making significant gains among Detroit voters. He is now at 48% overall support, up 9 points from February. Meanwhile, Democratic Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson has slipped to 32%, and Republican Congressman John James has dropped to just 3% among Detroit voters. Specifically interesting, and I'll link to the whole thing in the show notes. Specifically interesting is something that Norris Howard called and got a lot of hell for, but Duggan is leading 51-28 among black voters in the city, which is groundbreaking. It shows he's got a lot of juice. The big question, can he keep this momentum? This is a long way out. How is this going to go? This is just one snapshot, but man, anytime a politician polls 51 with any group, that is like, oh, and then I'm going to be very interested to see the Democrats' reaction to this.
I think this goes to our last story in the sense that people inside have a certain feeling, and these echo chambers exist. And I think sometimes people in the city tell themselves that Duggan, isn't doing this or isn't doing that or didn't accomplish this or isn't that great. I can tell you his notoriety, his popularity outside of Detroit, and like the farther out you go, like let's go out Michigan, he's wildly popular, as you said, because it tracks with people's perceptions. If you're in, Alpena, all you know about Detroit sometimes is like, it's coming back, and that Mayor Duggan is, probably the guy in your mind who's spearheading this. And he's got to be a great mayor because he turned around Detroit. Like that's the narrative for someone in a farther part of Michigan. And that's not going to change. That narrative is going to exist. And when you talk about a statewide race, there's just this naturally popular perception of Duggan. And these numbers are really incredible. If you look at it's not only, you talked about the 51% black voters, females. He's leading Benson 46-34 among females. The only segment that Benson is leading Duggan is in white voters in Detroit, interestingly. And John James is basically not even existent. I mean, 2%, 6%, less than 1%, 1%. And I think we need to take note of that when it does come down to a larger race, because I think that some people, maybe on the Republican side, think that because they're running a black Republican potentially, that will, people will vote for someone of their own race. And I think that is a wild miscalculation of how smart a lot of voters actually are and what they see through.
I think there are some wider national headwinds happening here. And I'm going to bust some algorithm bubbles here, because when I posted about this, a lot of people are just, they're shook up about it. But let's talk about a few things. One, both the Democratic and Republican brands are trash to a lot of people. A lot of people will get into posting on Instagram or whatever your TikTok feed or whatever. It'll keep showing you things that you agree with. Mm-hmm. The reality is out there in the world, not only do people not trust Democrats and they're upset about them, but people are mad. Like, look right now with Republicans, 75% of people do not want cuts to Medicaid. And what are Republicans trying to push through? Regular people are angry at both parties. Both parties are very damaged. The other thing, I know that there's a lot of talk about the president as being this very powerful person, but in reality, with races, he does not have coattails, especially when he's not on the ballot. Look at things like Alyssa Slotkin winning here in Michigan, even when he was on the ballot, right? He doesn't have the same coattails. So there's a quality to this that I think people are thinking that Duggan will just, decimate only Democratic voters, but it's not. It's more complicated than I think that people think.
It's a lot trickier than that. Again, the president's poll numbers are continue to kind of sink at a point where, this is still far away. We're in 2025. This election is in the end of 2026, and a lot can happen. A lot of political headwinds. A lot of things can happen right now. But right now, Duggan is absolutely capturing, like you said, he's like riding like the absolute ethos of everyone right now who basically says both parties suck. I want somebody who doesn't have a political affiliation, who just focuses on getting stuff done. And that is who Mike Duggan has made himself out to be. Like that would be, anyone who talk about it, like, what is Mike Duggan about? He doesn't play politics. He doesn't, not a Republican, not a Democrat. He just gets stuff done, and he brings the people to the table and gets the deals done. Like, that's the perception of him. And that's what people want right now.
There's something about this moment, too, where Michigan is at and where people are feeling economically. What we learned in that last election is that democracy being on the ballot is not enough. And if democracy being on the ballot is your question, this is just my thought. I'm not saying that it can't change or that they're a bad candidate or any of that. But if democracy on the ballot is the question, that plays to Benson's strengths.
Mm-hmm.
Secretary of State, all the
Yes.
election security stuff, right? That plays to her strengths. If the question is economy, and Michigan has been in a lot of ways stagnant, on the economic side for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
If the question is economy, the question is jobs, there's worry about, changes and tariffs and auto suppliers or whatever, that's going to play into Duggan's hands.
Yeah. And to be fair, this could swing back.
For sure.
God knows what could happen in the Trump administration. We could be dealing with, a crisis of democracy in a year. And in that case, you're absolutely right. I think Benson will start to shoot up. But it depends. Not that's a good thing. You don't want that to happen, but it would favor her in terms of politically.
Yeah, it will be interesting to watch. And I think this proves that this is going to be a very interesting race. And I just don't want to assume that just because Duggan is doing well, that it means that a Republican is going to win. I just don't think that's the case.
No, well, you're seeing it with these poll numbers. I mean, John James is just, he's microscopic in these poll numbers. And it just shows me that absolutely no. This is
because a key part of the right strategy is cleave off some Detroit voters.
Yeah, I think people really misjudge how much. I've talked to a lot of people who really are thinking like Duggan would pull, 60% or 70% Democrats and 30% Republicans. No, I'm telling you, that's not the case at all. He's pulling at least, 50-50, I think. And he could even pull more Republicans.
Well, we'll see how more data comes out and how this all shakes out. And we will see you next week on your Daily Detroit. This is our last episode for the week. We really appreciate you listening and watching and following what we're doing. And thank you so much to our members on Patreon, patreon.com/Daily Detroit. Local media requires local support to survive. I love having these kinds of in-depth conversations about the community that we're a part of and that we love. So with that, I'm Jer Stays.
I'm Devin O'Reilly.
Thank you so much for listening. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit.